I think a huge part of the next generation battle between Team Red and Team Green is going to be decided tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. Why? Because FSR 2.0 is apparently actually launching tomorrow in one game only, Deathloop, which is why I'm downloading it right now. Because am I going to test this out on the channel? Oh, you bet I'm going to test this out on the channel. I've got so many questions because FSR 2.0 should be exciting for a lot of people, not even just AMD users. For one thing, I want to test this out on my GTX 1060. This is also, of course, a huge deal for current AMD users, as well as, I think, the overall success of AMD in the future. Because here's the thing. If AMD wants to keep their pricing as high as it seems like they want to, considering their refreshed GPUs didn't slot in at, the same MSRP, they're bumping it up. They want to price themselves very similarly to Nvidia. But I think for that to make sense, when you look at the feature list between the two brands, the biggest one for me is DLSS, because especially when you're above 1080p, when you're playing at 4K, for example, using DLSS quality is basically free performance. You can sometimes get some ghosting issues and things like that. It's not 100% perfect, but it's so close to the native image at 4K that it's basically free performance. At 1440p, to me, it depends a lot on the game, but it can be extremely usable and extremely close to native, and it makes a lot of sense. Tons of people are going to use it. 1080p, it's a bit iffy, but it certainly does look better than FSR 1.0 at 1080p. The point is here that when you're choosing between the two technologies, this is a huge, huge value-added feature for NVIDIA with DLSS. And FSR 2.0 has to be able to at least get close to what DLSS can do. And all signs point to it will, given the screenshots and slow-moving video that AMD has released showing Deathloop in the past. But this needs independent testing, and looks like we should be able to get started doing that tomorrow. Now anyway, where is this info coming from? How do I know it's coming out tomorrow? So on AMD.com, there is a press release that was mostly seemed to be targeted at announcing their RX 50 refresh GPUs, which I'm still irritated about their pricing. But anyway, the point is that buried under that, we have this. AMD FSR 2.0 support, but here's the big one. The first game to add support for AMD FSR 2.0 is Deathloop by Arcane Studios and Bethesda, which is expected to be available via an update on May 12th, 2022. Now, I don't know if that'll be available first thing in the morning for me to get you a video out first thing tomorrow morning testing this, but you expect a bunch of videos from me testing this out as soon as that patch goes live, and I have a second to jump in there. So the other big thing I think for AMD's success with this is, number one, it has to be at least almost as good as DLSS. And number two, it needs to start getting supported in basically all the big games that have DLSS. At least the new ones that launch. And according to AMD, any game that has DLSS 2.0 support already should only take about 3 days of development time to add support for FSR. Now, FSR 2.0 to be specific. FSR 1.0 was extremely easy to add into games, but it's entirely different technology. Really, they're just not at all the same thing in terms of how they actually work and how a game developer would implement them. So, Though here's where I guess maybe I just don't know these games well enough. I know some of these games, but the other games that AMD is announcing in the coming months are Asterigos, which honestly, I haven't even heard of that. Delysium, I feel like I've heard that name, but I don't know anything about it. Now, EVE Online I know about, but okay, I haven't checked in on this in like 10 years or so. Does that have graphics that really are going to need upscaling? Has that been updated? Is that actually hard to run? I don't know. Perfect World Remake. Oh, sorry, jumped in line here. Farming Simulator 22. I at least, I do know about that one. Forspoken, I know is coming out and anticipated. I've seen Grounded. Microsoft Flight Simulator, I think, is a big one. And Nishuihan, I have no idea what that is. Perfect World Remake, I think I've at least heard that name. Swordsman Remake, and Unknown 9 Awakening. Yeah, so a lot of these I don't really know much about. So anyway, great. I don't really... The big thing is we need to get this into big games, both that are already out with DLSS support and then especially upcoming games that have DLSS support. For this to really work out for AMD. I think this is huge. Now expect me to be testing this on my 1060 because that's one of the big things. Nvidia doesn't allow DLSS to run on their GTX series cards. Let's test it on a 1060. Let's test this on my AMD cards versus FSR 1.0. Also test out its image quality comparison versus DLSS. I'm very excited. But anyway, a few more little bits of news today. As we get closer to the next gen of GPU launches, expect to see more and more leaks regarding the next gen performance. And today we're seeing some updates to RTX 4090. And where is this coming from? So when you're looking at these rumors, the source is extremely important. But Kopite 7 Kimi has a good track record at getting things right in the past with previous GPU launches, which means I think we actually should pay attention to what Kopite has to say and say that it's probably at least a current plan, whether or not plans change by the time things launch. Anyway, so in the past, they had some updates to the 4080 and 4070. And today we're getting some updates to 4090 and 4070. So this is Kopite replying to their previous comment back in April saying that the RTX 4080 would use the AD103 chip built with 16 gigabytes of GDDR6X and have a similar TGP to GA102. Now, GA102, I believe being the, this is like your 3090 type class, or at least it's on that chip, right? But exactly which GA102 model, right? Your 3090, your 3090 Ti, your 3080, who knows? Anyway, and then they said the RTX 4070 will use the AD104 chips built with 12 gigabytes of GDDR6 at 300 watts. And at that time, both of them haven't started testing yet, but they will soon. Now, I think, first of all, those memory amounts are a huge deal, and I think NVIDIA... Again, in the everlasting war between who has what selling point, one of AMD's big selling points in our current generation was oftentimes offering more memory on the competing card, like 16 gigabytes versus 10 gigabytes on the initial 3080, which got somewhat helped out by the 12 gigabyte Ti models and just the 12 gigabyte non-Ti model. And the 4070, I mean, this is huge to me. If they had left 8 gigabytes on their 70 class card again, it would just be a disaster, in my opinion. So going up to 12 gigabytes there is absolutely huge. Now, I don't like to see it at 300 watts, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think the 3070 Ti model already goes up to 290 watts, I believe, for its spec. So it's not actually a huge change. Compared to at least the Ti variant, which is admittedly a lot less efficient than the non-Ti variant. Now, the RTX 4090, it looks like we're now getting some info that it'll be AD102-300, 21 gigabits per second, 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X, 600 watts, which we have seen rumored before. And all of this does... for the 4070 seems to line up with what we were seeing right here up above. Overall, I'm okay with the 90 class card drawing insane power. I'm okay with that as long as the, mid-range and upper mid-range cards stay at least somewhat sane. I think 300 watts, while it's certainly higher than I would like, it's not completely insane, and a lot of people could use a reasonable power supply to run that. Whereas 600 watts, and again, how about the 4090 Ti? I'm sure we'll see that someday, Anyway, I think performance targets that I've heard for the 4070 are something along the lines of a 3080 Ti. And if that's true, then, this sounds a lot like a 3080 Ti, to be honest, with the 12 gigabytes of RAM and the 300 watt power. This is actually going to be maybe a little bit more efficient. So if the 4070 basically delivers the 3080 Ti-like performance for a little bit less power draw and has that 12 gigabytes of memory, I think this is a solid card. But again, everything's going to depend on the pricing and availability as well. Now, one more thing. Now, this isn't as hardware related as I usually report, but I think it definitely affects the PC gaming space. Valve is facing antitrust litigation lawsuit by U.S. District Judge over Steam prices. I think what's going on here is not only the fact that Valve charges 30%, takes a 30% cut of what developers make, but there's allegedly, and I think this is what would need to be proved. I think they mention it here in the article, but the company allegedly enforces their 30% pricing with a combination of written and unwritten rules, imposing its own conditions on how even non-Steam enabled games are sold and priced. And that's the big deal. If the allegation is basically that Steam says that people can't sell their prices on competitor stores at a lower price than how they sell on the Steam store. So basically, Steam is saying, like, even if another store charges 15% instead of 30%, you still can't sell your game at a lower price there. You can keep your extra profit to yourself, but you can't undercut the pricing. And that is where the antitrust element of this, I think, comes into play. Now, a few more just little quick things I'm going to throw out here at the end. Intel did officially give their press release for their Alder Lake HX high-end laptop CPUs. Now, I don't personally care too much about laptop CPUs, but hey, there you go. Got a little bit of info about it. I think the biggest deal could just be the, it's up to 16 cores. That's 8 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores, getting you 24 threads, running up to 55 watts, some PCIe Gen 5 connection, blah, blah, blah. If you actually care about laptops, look at that. There you go. There's the info. I included it. Also more mobile stuff. Intel shows off its 14th gen core Meteor Lake mobile packages at their Vision conference. Although, again, this is 14th gen. This is coming way out in the future. So, hey, we just get, like, a little bit of stuff. There's some pictures. Neat. Let's see. Also in Geekbench, I think it is, we're seeing a chip that is probably an AMD EPYC 7004 Genoa CPU engineering sample with 32 Zen 4 cores and increased L2 cache, 128 megabytes of L3 cache, and up to 4.6 gigahertz clocks. But again, that's just a little bit of a Geekbench leak. And last quick little thing is that AMD RDNA 3 Graphics 11 GPUs get first Mesa, I don't know how to pronounce that out loud, support, and RADV graphics tech adds task shaders. Basically, we're seeing, updates to get ready for RDNA 3. Great, I'm not going to dive super far into that, but I will include it in the video and source in the description if you want to dive further in there yourself. Did I just have a little download link right here the whole time while I filmed this video? Not that it matters. It was this picture. I had to get that picture for my background. Anyway, I hope all of you guys have an excellent day.